No one saw it coming. Not the viewers, not the critics, not even Meghan Markle's most devoted supporters. But when Piers Morgan went live that night, something in his voice already hinted that this wouldn't be one of his usual rants. This time, he wasn't just talking, he was ready to show. And then, in the middle of his broadcast, the unthinkable happened. According to those who watched, Piers didn't just talk about Meghan. He exposed her. He came armed not with gossip, not with rumors, but with what he called receipts. Alleged photos that were supposed to be long gone, erased from the internet, hidden by people who wanted them forgotten forever. And when those images appeared allegedly on live television, people froze. Because what they saw wasn't the Meghan they thought they knew. These weren't photos from her royal days. Not red carpets, not interviews. These were something else entirely, moments from her Soho House days. The kind of private, late-night events that are supposed to stay behind closed doors. People said only one thing after seeing them. This isn't the Meghan we were told about. For years, we've been fed the perfect story. A hardworking actress, humble beginnings, a girl who loved humanitarian causes, who fell into royalty like it was destiny itself. A fairy tale, clean, perfect, inspiring. But these alleged images, if they are what people claim, tell a completely different story. They show a woman who wasn't stumbling into power, but standing right where the powerful could see her. And the question everyone whispered next hit like a storm. If those photos were real, why were they hidden all this time? To understand that, you have to understand what made them so dangerous. Because the Meghan, we all know, the one who sits for interviews under soft lights, talking about kindness and struggle, she's a character, a version carefully crafted for public eyes. But behind that glow, there's another version, one that very few people were ever allowed to see. Sources who claim to have seen the photos described Meghan surrounded by men far older, far richer, far more powerful than anyone from her Suits days. Not in a chance encounter sort of way, but like she belonged there. At tables where billionaires laughed quietly. In rooms most celebrities never even get to enter. And that's when the story starts to fracture, because if Meghan back then wasn't as ordinary as she claimed, then maybe the tale she told the world wasn't the whole truth. So let's talk about Soho House, because that's where everything starts to make sense. It's not a restaurant, not a hotel. It's an institution, a chain of private, members-only clubs scattered across the world, built for a very particular kind of person. People with influence, wealth, or connections so powerful they can change the course of someone's life with a single introduction. Even Kim Kardashian and Kobe Bryant were turned away. But somehow, Meghan, a cable actress from Toronto, moved through those halls like she'd always belonged there. She wasn't just visiting. According to Prince Harry's own memoir, she called it her headquarters. She kept luggage there. She knew the staff. She could come and go as she pleased. And that's where the mystery deepens. Because Soho House doesn't just open its doors for anyone. You don't walk in because you're lucky. You walk in because someone vouches for you. So who opened the door for Meghan Markle? There's one name that keeps coming up, Marcus Anderson. Marcus wasn't just her friend. He was the global membership director of Soho House, the man who literally decided who got in and who didn't. And somehow, Meghan was always inside, always close to him. He wasn't a background character in her story, he was the one writing part of it. He introduced the right people, arranged the right meetings, made the right calls. His job was to manage access to the elite, access to power, access to the rooms that shape destinies. And Meghan, she had that access long before she ever met Prince Harry. People started noticing the pattern. Marcus in Los Angeles, Marcus in Toronto, Marcus in London, Marcus again in California, always nearby, always in the same circles, always just behind her like a shadow that followed her rise from one city to the next. And when whispers began that Marcus was the one who introduced her to Prince Harry, everything suddenly fit together. Her climb wasn't random. It wasn't fast or chaotic. It was measured, deliberate, guided. But Marcus wasn't the only name people whispered about. There was also talk of someone called Christopher Jones, a man who claimed he worked the yacht circuit, a world of luxury gatherings where actresses and millionaires mingle far from cameras. He said his time there overlapped with Meghan's. And while not every yacht story is scandalous, some go there to network or find opportunities. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Because here's what it looked like piece by piece. Meghan, moving in elite circles before she was famous. Meghan photographed around powerful men. Meghan connected to Soho House through its own director. Meghan rumored to be part of that same exclusive yacht social scene. It painted a picture that didn't match her public story, a version that seemed carefully buried piece by piece as her royal image took shape. And yet, the most curious part of all isn't about what was shown, it's about what wasn't said afterward. Because when Piers Morgan allegedly aired those photos, everyone waited for Meghan's response, and she said, nothing. No statement, no denial. No lawsuit, nothing. And for someone like Meghan, who has sued newspapers, filed complaints, demanded retractions, her silence was deafening. People close to her said it was strategic, but others whispered it was fear that saying anything at all would make the story bigger. Because when someone with her resources, her power, and her legal team decides not to respond, the silence starts to feel less like control and more like confirmation. That's when this story stopped feeling like gossip and started feeling like revelation. Because this wasn't the first time Meghan and Piers had crossed paths. Back in 2016, before the royal romance, they actually met for drinks. Piers said it was friendly, warm, they chatted for hours. He thought they were forming a connection, maybe even a friendship. But the very next night, Meghan went to Soho House, had dinner with Prince Harry, and after that night, she never spoke to Piers again. No message, no explanation, just gone. And from that moment, something in Piers broke. He felt used, discarded, and when she later accused him of attacking her character, and when her complaint to ITV cost him his job, it wasn't just professional, it was personal. So when he allegedly went live with those photos, people didn't see it as journalism, they saw it as revenge. The kind that brews quietly for years until it explodes in one televised act. For Piers, it wasn't just exposing Meghan, it was settling a score. And for Meghan, it was her past knocking on the door she thought she'd locked forever. Because here's the truth that no one wants to say out loud. Meghan Markle's story has always had two versions. The public one, the fairy tale, and the private one that lives in whispers and locked rooms. Every move she made, every circle she entered, every connection she kept, it all looks different when you realize how perfectly it was orchestrated. She didn't rise by accident. She studied the rooms, the people, the language. She adapted. When she was in Hollywood, she spoke like an actress trying to make it. When she was in royal circles, she spoke like a humanitarian trying to change the world. Every version of her fit the space she wanted to conquer. Even her gestures, the soft smiles, the tilted head, the gentle eyes, some claim they were modeled after Princess Diana herself. And maybe that's what made Harry fall so hard. But beneath all that grace, there's a woman who knew how to read power and how to mirror it. And that's why those alleged photos, if they were real, mattered so much. Because they pulled the curtain back on the version of her that existed before the fairy tale. The version she never wanted the world to meet. The one who already knew how to move through powerful circles. The one who understood influence before she ever met a prince. The one who maybe didn't just find her destiny but built it. It doesn't matter anymore whether Piers aired those photos for truth or for revenge. Because once the world glimpses the other side of a story, even for a second, it can never unsee it. Every fairy tale has two faces. The bright, shining one that the world adores, and the shadowed one that tells the real story, the one whispered behind velvet curtains in rooms with no cameras where decisions are made and futures are planned. For Meghan Markle, that shadow has finally caught up. The lights are shifting now, and the truth, whatever form it takes, is walking out of the dark, one photograph at a time. And yet, even after all that noise, all that shock, all those whispers that seemed to wrap around the story like smoke, Meghan never looked back. She smiled in public, walked past reporters, carried herself like nothing had happened. But that silence, that sharp, deliberate silence, it only made people talk more. Because sometimes when someone doesn't defend themselves, it isn't because they're innocent. It's because they know the truth would sound far worse if spoken aloud. And the people who'd been close to her before fame began to come out, one by one, sharing little fragments, not lies, not gossip, just stories that didn't match the fairy tale. One said she always had a way of walking into a room and knowing exactly who mattered. Another said she had a map in her mind, a list of people she needed to meet, places she needed to be, things she needed to say, and she played the part perfectly every single time. Even those who adored her couldn't deny it. She was a master at turning moments into stepping stones. Every introduction led somewhere, every photo led to the next door, and every friendship seemed to have a quiet purpose behind it. That doesn't make her evil, no. It makes her calculated. And in that world, the world of image, fame, and royalty, calculation is everything. But what unsettled so many was the idea that maybe, just maybe, the prince wasn't her beginning. He was her final piece. The last move in a long, carefully arranged game. Because when you look back, the Soho House access, the yacht circles, the introductions, the power networks, it all points to one truth. She was already walking toward that castle long before she knew its doors would open. People close to Harry began noticing the difference too. They said she wasn't overwhelmed by royal life. She was prepared for it, almost rehearsed. The poise, the timing, the interviews, it all felt like she'd been here before, just under a different name in a different circle. And that's what makes those alleged photos so haunting. Because they aren't just images, they're echoes. Echoes of a life that contradicts the script. Echoes of a woman who might have already lived the role she later claimed was destiny. But even now, years later, the story refuses to rest. Every time Meghan reappears, every interview, every speech, that same question hides in the background like a ghost. What else hasn't she told us? Because you can erase photos, you can silence people, you can even sue the press, but you can't erase the pattern. And that's what this whole story comes down to. Not just a set of pictures, or a feud, or revenge. It's about a pattern that keeps returning. A pattern that follows her like a shadow, no matter how high she climbs. People say fairy tales always end with happily ever after. But what they forget is, the ending depends on who's telling the story. And in this case, maybe the fairy tale was never about love at all. Maybe it was about power dressed up beautifully as destiny. Because behind the smile, behind the charity speeches and royal titles, there's still that girl from the Soho Nights, the one who knew how to stand exactly where powerful men could see her. And when you understand that,